Sridhar madam, start.
Yes, sir. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. So I would like to invite Sri G. Satyanarayan Garu, PGT Botany from TSMS Bangaruguda from Adilabad district to take over the session of botany regarding the micronutrients for the plant nutrition. Right? Yesterday, sir has explained you regarding the macronutrients and their importance for the plant nutrients, plant nutrition children. And today he will present another interesting session regarding this plant physiology. So I would like to hand over the session to Mr. Satyanarayan Garu. So please, we welcome you again for this session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
I hope every BioPC student will take utilize of this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir.
You can start.
Good afternoon, children. Today we are going to discuss an important topic, micronutrients. See, a part of the second chapter, mineral nutrition. See, in mineral nutrition, we have classified them into macronutrient and micronutrient. So in yesterday's chapter, we completed some important terminologies and important concepts. So let us recapitulate what we have completed yesterday's session. So we have observed the hydroponic culture and hydroponic technique, and we also learned the definition of hydroponic also. So what is hydroponic? It is a technique of growing plants in a specified nutrient solution in complete absence of the soil. By using this technique, nowadays we are producing the commercialized vegetables. Okay, so this technique nowadays is useful to produce many economically important plants also. And later onwards, we focused the criteria of the essentiality. In yesterday's class, we learned that there are 60 elements are present in the plant, but all these 60 elements are not present in each and every plant. So there are some specific criteria is there. Based on that, we can identify which elements are very essential. So on the essentiality criteria, we observed two criteria. One is based on their quantity, and next criteria is based on their function. After that, we completed the classification of essential elements. See, there are 21 essential elements are there, mostly the macro, micro, and beneficial elements. Totally 21 elements are there. These 21 elements are very essential for the plant growth. Among the 21 elements, macronutrients are more important, have completed the role of macronutrients also. We completed the we have observed the 6 macronutrients, their role and plant, what type of symptoms have been occurred on the plant. So in today's session, we learn about the role of micro elements. Dear children, can you define what is micro element or micronutrition? So micronutrition means, microelements means these are the elements which present lesser than the 10 millimole of a kg of dry matter. That means if you take a kilogram of dry matter or dry soil, in that soil, these elements should not exceed more than 10 millimole. So those elements are called micro elements. Micro means small, so that they are required in a small amount, less than 10 millimole per kg of the dry matter. So there are 8 micro elements are there, and in today's session, we'll focus on these 8 micro elements, their role and their deficiency symptoms also. So let us see the first micro element, the iron. Iron is a micronutrient which is required in more amount when compared with the other 7 micro elements. So the requirement amount of iron is 2 millimole per kg of dry matter. So it is very important micro element. The requirement is also more to the plant also, and it is required, so that it is required in large amount other than the micro elements also. The composition is more, the quantity should be required more to the plant when compared with the other micro elements. And if you see the functions of the iron. Now, how iron get function in the plant? See, it is useful for the constitution of some electron carriers like ferridaxine and cytochrome. So these are the electron carriers. The cytochrome and ferridaxine are the electron carriers. They carries the electron from one electron carrier to another electron carrier. See, especially we'll see about the electron carrier in photosynthesis as well as in respiration chapters also. So for the construction of these electron carrier like ferridaxine and cytochrome, the iron is required. And another function of the iron is it is useful for the formation of the chlorophyll. So chlorophyll is required for the plant because with presence of the chlorophyll only plant produces the food material, so that we can call them as a autotrophic plants or autotrophic nutrition. So for the synthesis of the chlorophyll, or for the formation of the chlorophyll, this element is required. And what will happen if the iron element is not available to the plant in a specific value? So when an element is not available to the plant in a specific or in a required amount, we can observe some deficiency symptoms. So now let us see what are the deficiency symptoms of the iron. So it is first deficiency symptom is chlorosis of younger leaves. So what is chlorosis? Again, in the chlorosis, what is chlorosis? So chlorosis is nothing but the yellowing of the leaf. That means the leaf color turn into yellowish color. Why yellow? Because it is the chlorophyll become denatured, so that the leaf become converted into the yellow color. And the first disease symptoms observed in younger leaf. Why not? Why in younger leaf and why not in older leaf? Because in we learned that the mobilizing elements, if they are deficient, their deficiency symptoms observed in the older leaf. So when the element is immobile, the deficiency symptoms observed in the younger leaf. So that it means that iron is a immobile element or immobile nutrient also. Then chlorophyll production will be less. So if it is deficient, chlorophyll will not synthesize it. The function of this iron is to synthesize this, the chlorophyll. So if it is deficient, the chlorophyll won't synthesize. If chlorophyll won't synthesize it, the leaf gradually converted into the yellowish color, and it leads to the chlorosis diseases. So this is the role of the iron element. Now let us see the another micro element, manganese. See, it is required in at the volume of 1 millimole per kg of the dry matter, and it is absorbed in the form of manganese ion. It is a divalent ion. In Mn+2, it is divalent, so it is absorbed in the form of manganese ion. And functions of the manganese are: it activates enzymes of photosynthesis and respiration. And apart from these two reactions, the manganese also useful for the activation of enzymes related with the nitrogen metabolisms also. So what kind of enzymes are they participating in the photosynthesis and respiration? So here some examples have given related with the activation of the enzymes. The malic dehydrogenase, it is an enzyme required in the respiratory system. So for the activation of the malic dehydrogenase enzyme, manganese ion is important. And oxalosuccinic dehydrogenase. So it is also participate in the respiration system, and to get activate this enzyme, manganese ion is required. Then nitrate reductase. So it involved in the nitrogen metabolism. See this with the help of the nitrogen metabolisms, the root nodule and other things will be formed, and nitrogen will be fixed. So for the nitrogen reductase enzyme to get activated, the manganese is essential and it is required. So these three are the examples for the activation of enzymes. To activate these enzymes, manganese ion is required. So these all three enzymes are participating in different biological processes, maybe photosynthesis, maybe respiration, or maybe in the nitrogen metabolism. So it is very important micronutrient to activate enzymes of different biochemical reactions. The next function is it is also useful for the synthesis of the chlorophyll. Chlorophyll also synthesized by the help of the manganese ion. The next photolysis of water. See, this reaction is observed in the photosynthesis. During the light reaction, the photolysis of water is a one step. So this photolysis of water is also happening in the light reaction. So for that reaction, what will happen in this reaction, the water molecule becomes split and it converts into the, it releases the hydrogen, then proton, electron, and the oxygen also. So for the releasing of the oxygen, the photolysis of water is required. So for the photolysis of water, the magnesium ion is required. And one more macro element is also required for the photolysis of water. Can you recall the children? What is that macronutrient which is required for the photolysis of water? Yes, calcium. Calcium is a macro element which is required for the photolysis of the water. Apart from that, calcium, manganese also required for this reaction. Then it is also activates the indole acetic acid oxidase enzyme. So it is enzyme indole acetic acid. It is a plant growth regulator hormone. So to get activate this enzyme, manganese ion is important. Then what are the deficiency symptoms? If the manganese ion is not available to the plant in a specific requirement, we can find some deficiency symptoms. What are those deficiency symptoms? First, gray color spots in oats. That means the leaf, these spots are occurred firstly on the leaf. Generally, the leaves are the green in color, but because of the deficiency of manganese, the leaf converted into the gray color spots. And intervenal chlorosis. That means the midvein and the lateral veins become converted into the yellowish color. So it is called intervenal chlorosis. And chloroplasts are without chlorophyll. See, if you see the structure of the chloroplast, in the chloroplast, we can find the chlorophyll, starch grain, lipids, DNA, stroma, grana, these all are the present. We'll see in the photosynthesis chapter. So the manganese ion, if it is deficient, the chloroplast will form without chlorophyll and starch grain. So if chlorophyll is not present, then chloroplast also won't function. Okay. So understood, children, what are the deficiency symptoms of the manganese ion? Then we'll move for the another micro element, zinc. Zinc, it is the required amount of the zinc is 0.3 millimole. That is very little amount it is required. And it is absorbed in the form of divalent ion zinc, Zn+2. The functions of zinc are, it activates many enzymes. Okay, so here let us take the examples which enzymes were activated by the zinc, carboxylases, and certain enzymes which are participating in the photosynthesis and respirations also. And for the synthesis of the carbohydrates also, the zinc ion is required. And it also acts as a precursor of the auxin. So what is auxin? It is a plant growth regulator, right? It is a plant growth regulator. That means it is useful for the growth of the plant. To synthesize this auxin, zinc ion act as a precursor. Precursor means before auxin, before the synthesis of the auxin should be in the form of the tryptophan. So after tryptophan, then the auxin will be synthesized. So zinc ion useful for the synthesis of precursor of the auxin in the form of the tryptophan. Then it is required for fermentation process also. Children, can you recall what is fermentation? Fermentation is an anaerobic respiration where the glucose molecule is partially oxidizes and it's converted into the ethyl alcohol, and sometimes lactic acid is also produced. So that process is called fermentation. So for this process, the fermentation process, zinc ion is required. Then let us see the deficiency symptoms. See, we can find the deficiency symptoms of zinc in a specified plant, deciduous plants. These deciduous plants means generally they fall off their leaves in the summer season, called deciduous plants. So in those plants, we find a little leaf disease. Little leaf disease. See, this is the little leaf disease. That means the leaves should not grow their appropriate size. The size become very little. Okay, so they should not grow the average size. They grow below this size. So it is called little leaf. The size of the leaf become little. So it is called the name, the disease name I called as little leaf diseases. And this disease mostly observed in many deciduous plants. Okay. Then another deficiency symptoms is necrosis. Now, what is necrosis? Can you recall the children? What is necrosis? Yes, necrosis means the dead tissue. The tissues become dead and they become converted into the brownish color. Okay, so the little leaf disease and necrosis, these are two deficiency symptoms of the zinc. Then let us go for the another micro element, copper. So copper is required in a very little amount, 0.1 millimole per kg of the dry matter. Then it is absorbed in the form of cupric ions. Cupric ions. It is also a divalent ion. It is also a divalent, so cupric ion there. Then it is required for the associated. It is associated with many enzymes involving in redox reactions. See, redox reactions means the two types of reactions will be there. If in case of Cu is there, the Cu will be reducted into Cu plus 2, and Cu plus 2 is also again oxidizes into the Cu. So it is called the reductive reactions. So Cu to Cu plus 2 and Cu plus 2 to Cu. So in this redox reaction, the copper is required. Then structural components of electron carriers. So electron carriers means which carries the electron. These electron carriers are very important in the photosynthesis process as well as the respiration process also. Here we'll see certain example for the electron carrier, cytochrome C oxidase. Cytochrome C is a electron carrier and it oxidizes in the mitochondrial reactions. And plastocyanin, is an electron carrier present in the chloroplast. So for the synthesis of or for the structural components of electron carriers like cytochrome C and plastocyanin, the copper ion is required. Then what are the deficiency symptoms of it? If it is deficient, what kind of symptoms we'll observe? We'll see two special diseases, chlorosis and necrosis. So chlorosis means again the yellowing of the leaf. Necrosis means dead tissue. The tissue become dead. So these are the deficiency symptoms. Let us see here. See, we can find some brownish spots. Now these brown spots here, the tissue is totally dead. So now this disease is called necrosis. So necrosis means dead tissue. The brownish spots will be observed. And what is chlorosis? The part of the basically the leaf margin part are there. No, the leaf margin parts are converted into the yellowish color. So it is called the chlorosis process. So the deficiency of copper leads to the diseases like chlorosis and the necrosis. Then we go for the another element, boron. See, boron is observed in various forms. The two special forms are there for the boron, and it is required 2 millimole per kg of the dry matter. It is observed in two various ions, BO3 minus and B4O7 minus 2. It is called tetraborate. Borate and tetraborate, B4O7 minus 2 ions, tetraborate. So in these two forms, the plant absorbs the boron. Now, what are the functions of the boron? See, it is required for uptaking and utilization of calcium ion. See, there are some minerals are there. These minerals are required to uptake the another minerals also. That means they are useful to uptake the another kind of elements or minerals. So it is the boron is required for uptake and utilization of the calcium ion. And it is also useful for the formation of the membrane. Membrane, when it is the cell membrane is formed, for the functioning of the cell membrane also, the boron ion is useful. And another macro element is also useful for the formation of the membrane and its function. Can you recall the children? What is that macronutrient? Calcium. So calcium is a macronutrient which is useful for the formation of the cell membrane and the functioning of the cell membrane also. And the important function of the boron is pollen germination on stigma. See, if you see a flower, in the flower, see there are stigma style ovary. The three parts are present. These we completed in the first year. We already learned in the first year. So stigma style ovary is present. So stigma is the apical part or the top part, apex part. So when the pollen grain fall down on the stigma, the pollen grain will germinate and it form the pollen tube. So for the pollen germination to form the pollen tube, the boron ion is required. So if it is deficit, then the pollen germination become stops and pollination won't occur. If pollination is not there, then the plant can, that means flower, fruits will not form, the crop will not give it. So the function is for the germination of the pollen grain on the stigma. Then cell elongation and cell differentiation. Elongation means increasing of the size. So cell gradually increases its size, and differentiation means have a specific function. Okay. So for the elongation of the cell and for the specific function, cell differentiation, the boron ion is required. Then carbohydrate translation. So for the translocation means the transportation. So transportation of the carbohydrate from various part of the plant, the boron ion is required. That means, see, they are generally synthesized in the leaf. The leaf only does not require all the carbohydrates. Every part of the plant required carbohydrate. So from the leaf, these carbohydrate has to transport various parts like root, flower, stem. So for their transportation, this ion is required. So for carbohydrate translocation, the boron ion is required. Then what are the deficiency symptoms of it? If it is deficit, if it is not available in a certain value, the plant shows certain deficiency symptoms. Now, what are those deficiency symptoms? We have taken an examples of beetroot. So in case of the beetroot, a disease is formed. The disease is called hot rot disease. Hot rot disease means the beetroot are completely damaged, and if you cut the beetroot, you can find a heart-shaped color. The structure become heart-shaped. Okay, so that is called hot rot disease. And see here we can see the two damaged symptoms also. It's a symptom, disease symptoms of the hot root in a specially find this disease in the beetroots. Then premature leaf fall and fruit fall. Premature means the leaf is not completely developed. Before developing only, the leaf become false. In case of fruit, if it is not completely developed, if it is fall, the fruit production will be less. So premature leaf fall and fruit fall will be observed with the deficiency of the boron. Okay, children understood what are the deficiency symptoms and functions of the boron. So it's a very important function of the boron is for the germination of pollen grain on the stigma, because the pollen tube is formed. Okay, so it is the important concepts and deficiency symptoms of a boron. Then we'll see the another micronutrient, molybdenum. It is required in a very little quantity, 0.001 millimole per kg of the dry matter. That is very little amount it is required. And it is absorbed in a divalent form, molybdenum. Then functions of the molybdenum are, it is a component of several enzymes. So like nitrogen and other macro element, the molybdenum is also a component of several enzymes. Example for those enzymes are nitrogenase and nitrate reductase. See, nitrogenase enzyme take part during the formation of the root nodule, and nitrate reductase. See, this enzyme will reductase certain elements, certain things also. Okay, it is also participating in the reductive processes, nitrate reductase. So for these synthesis of these two enzymes, the molybdenum ion is required, and it is also required for nodular formation. See, in leguminaceae family plants, we'll observe the root nodule. For the formation of the root nodule, this enzyme, this ion is required. Molybdenum ion is required. Then what are the deficiency symptoms of it? Generally, the deficiency symptoms are yellow spots on the citrus. The citrus plants, we can see the yellowish spots. And the dieback disease in citrus. Dieback means, in another word, the meaning of the dieback is killing of the shoot apex. See here, now this is a citrus plant. Here, the shoot apex, apical part, are they become dead. They are converted into the brownish color. So the leaf fall will be there, and the shoot also won't function. So these character symptoms are called dieback. So dieback disease in citrus, and yellow spots of citrus also. On the leaf, we can find the yellowish dots. So that is yellow spot disease in citrus, and dieback disease. That means the shoot apex and the leaf parts become dead and they converted into the brown color, and after that they become fall off. So dieback disease in citrus and whiptail of cabbage. See, generally the leaves are become converting into the whip-like structure. So it is actually when it is affected by the deficiency of molybdenum, the leaves are gradually converting into the whip. So it is called whiptail of cabbage diseases. So it is the deficiency symptoms of the molybdenum. Okay, children, the important concept here to remember is the deficiency symptoms. Whiptail of cabbage and dieback disease in citrus, yellow spots of in citrus plants also. Next, another micro element, chlorine. Chlorine, it is required in 3.0 millimole. So it's more than molybdenum, it is required. Then it is absorbed in the form of chloride ions along with the sodium and potassium. Generally, these are the so to maintain the anionic and cationic balance, the chlorine is required. So chlorine is an anion. It is absorbed along with the cations, sodium and potassium. So that we can say NaCl, KCl. So Na and K, Na plus and K plus are the cations, and this is the chlorine is the anion. So the chlorine is absorbed in the form of Cl minus along with the sodium and potassium ions. And what are the functions of it? It is useful for the maintaining solute concentration. See, within the solute concentration, there should be the equalization. The equality should be there. The anionic and cationic balance should be equilibrium. So to maintain that, it is observed in the form of anion along with these cation to maintain the solute concentration. The next, to maintain again anionic and cationic balancing. Next, splitting of water in photosynthesis. So magnesium ion, calcium ion, and chlorine, these are useful for the splitting of the water during the light reaction in the photosynthesis process. Then what are the deficiency symptoms of it? So when it is deficient, we'll see the whiptail in cauliflower. So it's a cauliflower. Again, the leaf become converted into the tail-like structure. It is called the whiptail. Whip means straight structure. So the leaf become converted into this straight whip-like structure. So this disease is called whiptail in cauliflower. Then necrosis. Necrosis means dead tissue. The tissue become dead. So these are the deficiency symptoms of the chlorine. The important function of the chlorine is to maintaining the anionic and cationic balancing. So for the opening and closing of stomata also it is useful, because along with the potassium, the chlorine ion is also useful to maintain anionic cationic gradient and turbidity pressure also. Okay, so these are the important things, deficiency symptoms and mode of absorption of the chlorine ion. Then the last micro element, nickel. So nickel is also required in very little amount, 0.05 millimole per kg of dry matter. The important thing of nickel is it is recognized as the 17th essential element. It is the 17th essential element. Recently, it was recognized. Before that, only 16 essential elements were there. Now the nickel was identified, so it is also recognized as the 17th essential element, because the essential elements are 17. 9 macronutrients, 8 micronutrients, and apart from that 4 beneficial elements also there. Total 21 elements are present. So in that, the 17th essential element is nickel. Now what is the role of it? It activators of certain enzymes like urease, and it is an important enzyme for the nitrogen metabolism. Urease is an enzyme, important enzyme during the nitrogen metabolism. So to activate this enzyme, nickel is required, and induces disease resistance in some plants. That means the plants will increase their resistance power. So induces means increasing. So increases the disease resistance in some plants. Now, what are the deficiency symptoms of it? See, when the nickel is deficient, we can find moss here in pecan plants. So the pecan plants are generally observed in North American and Mexico regions. So it's a pecan plants. Now here, the disease symptoms we are observing. The leaf edges are converted into the blackish color and they become dead. So these disease symptoms are called mouse ear. Mouse ear. It is observed in pecan plants. So it is the deficiency and role of these enzyme, role of these micro element. Then we'll go for the next. Critical concentration. Now, what is critical concentration? See, certain elements. What are the, up to here we have learned about the 17th essential elements. These elements are required in a certain amount. The volume is there. See, for example, in case of the nitrogen, it requires 1000 millimole. Okay, so if those elements are maybe not required, the certain element, certain amount is not required to the plant, not supplied to the plant, then they shows the plant shows the deficiency symptoms. So here we'll see a definition, the critical concentration. The concentration of essential element is below which plant growth is retarded. That means these elements are present below the requirement amount. For example, in case of the copper is required 4 to 5 microgram per a gram of dry matter. That means if you take a gram of dry matter, in that the copper should be present 4 to 5 micrograms. So this is the requirement amount. When copper is present below the 4 micrograms, that concentration is called critical concentration. So how we can define a critical concentration? The concentration of essential element is below. In case of the copper, it required 4 to it is required 4 to 15 micrograms. If it is below 4, now that concentration is called critical concentration. So once again, see the definition of it. The concentration of essential element is below. When it is below, the plant growth is retarded or the plant growth becomes stopped because the plant required more quantity of this element. So that concentration is called critical concentration. That means the availability of these minerals are not sufficient to the plant. So the plant has to be absorbed these elements from outer side. So if it is not absorbed, what will happen? We can find the deficiency symptoms. So if these critical, if the elements are critical in condition, we can find, we can see certain deficiency symptoms of it. Now, see the element is said to be deficient when it is present below the critical concentration. So if it is present below the critical concentration, in case of the copper, it is required 4 microgram to 15 microgram. If it is present below the 4, now what we can say? The element is deficit. So the element is said to be deficit when it is present below the critical concentration. Okay. So now what are the deficiency symptoms of essential elements? See, when these essential elements are not supplied to the plant in a certain concentration of it, then we can find deficiency symptoms. Now, what kind of deficiency symptoms we'll observe in various plants? See here, first deficiency symptoms we'll observe inhibition of cell division. Inhibition means, that means in other words, we can say the stopping. The cell division won't take place. If cell division won't take place, the plant growth will be stopped. So if in case of the nitrogen, potassium, sulfur, and molybdenum, if these elements are not supplied to the plant in a specific volume, they leads to the disease called inhibition of cell division. They stop the cell division so that the plant cannot grow. This is one of the deficiency symptoms of essential elements. Then delaying flower. The flowers, the flowering become delay. Okay, so when the flower become delay, we cannot get a crop in a time or fruits in a time, so that it become very delay. So delaying flower is caused by the deficiency of nitrogen, sulfur, and molybdenum. So here we can see that a single element do not cause any specific disease. In case of the nitrogen, if its deficiency is there, nitrogen deficiency is there, it is not causing any one single disease. It causes many diseases. In case of nitrogen, it causes inhibition of cell division, it causes delaying of the flowering, and also it causes stunted plant growth also. That means a single element leads many deficiency symptoms. Next, stunted growth. Stunted growth means the growth of the plant is stopped. So here various elements are causes for this stunted plant growth: nitrogen, potassium, calcium, sulfur, zinc, and boron. So here nitrogen causes all these three deficiency symptoms. Okay, and we can also say that the single deficiency symptom or single disease may not caused by any one specific nutrient. For example, in case of stunted plant growth, not only deficiency of nitrogen causes, along with the nitrogen, the calcium, potassium, sulfur, zinc, these also leads to the inhibition, stunted plant growth. Next, premature fall of leaves and buds. That means the leaves are not mature. That means the leaves before maturation only they become fall off. And in case of buds also become they flowered, they become fall off. Okay, so it is called premature fall of leaf and buds. It is caused by the three elements: sulfur, molybdenum, and nitrogen. Now here we can see a picture, premature fall of the leaf. Generally here the plant having the green leaf, but in case of this one it is premature. So when it is converted into the yellowish color, immediately it will fall off or shed off. So it is called premature leaf fall. Then this is the premature fall of the bud. So the bud is growing, the bud grows and it becomes blossoms. But in case of here, the bud is already fall off. It is called premature falling of the buds. Okay, so these are the some deficiency symptoms of various elements. Okay, here students just remember the point: a single element do not cause any one disease, or a single disease may not caused by, may not affected by the deficiency of a specific nutrient element. Many nutrient elements causes different kinds of diseases. Okay, so these are the various deficiency symptoms observed in various plants. Then another deficiency symptoms are there: chlorosis. See, the word we heard very rarely in this seminar, in these classes. So chlorosis means nothing but we already learned the yellowing of the leaf. Why they become converted into yellow? Because the chlorophyll is lost. The chlorophyll become reduced. Okay, so that the leaf converted into the yellow. So chlorosis disease is caused by the various elements: nitrogen, potassium, sulfur, magnesium. Okay, again sulfur, ferrous, manganese, and molybdenum. So these causes the chlorosis disease. So here we can have the picture of the chlorosis. The chlorosis, in the chlorosis, the leaf generally they are green in color, but when the leaf affected by the deficiency of these all elements, it causes the chlorosis. So chlorosis means the yellowing of the leaf. It's a chlorosis. Then necrosis. Necrosis means the death of tissue. The tissue become dead, particularly at the leaf tissue. Maybe leaf edges or maybe in the center of the leaf. So particularly the leaf tissue become dead. So that the diseases is called necrosis. See here, you can observe the brownish spots. Now the tissue become dead. Okay, so now this is the necrosis, and it is caused by various elements: copper, calcium, magnesium, potassium, and molybdenum. So these five are the deficiency symptoms or the diseases affected by the various elements when they are deficient. When they are not available to plant in a required amount, these mineral nutrients will leads to the diseases of these all five. Not only the five, there are some other diseases also there. So in our textbook we have covered these five deficiency symptoms. Right. Next, we'll go to the another concept. So toxicity of micronutrient. That means, see, children, plants are required the element in a specified value. That means in case of the nitrogen, it required 1000 millimole. If the plant are absorbing more nitrogen, that means more than 1000 millimole. Let us take 5000 millimole is absorbed by the plant. If it is absorbing more element, it causes toxicity. Okay. Then if it is deficit, it is absorbed less than the 1000 millimole, it causes deficiency. So that the absorbing of mineral nutrient should be in optimum level. If it is more, the absorbing of element is more, it causes toxicity. If the observation of element is less, decrease, it causes the deficiency symptoms. So that the absorption of elements by the plant should be in a optimum level. When they observe optimum level of elements, we cannot find any toxicity or any deficiency symptoms. So here we are going to learn an important term, technical term, toxicity. So what is toxicity? Any mineral ion concentration in tissue that reduces the dry weight of tissues by about 10%. That means let us take a leaf, the weight of the leaf is 2 grams. Okay, or let us take 1 gram. If the weight of the one leaf is 1 gram, if the minerals are supplied more quantity, then the weight of the leaf become reduced up to the 10%. That means 0.1% of the weight become reduces. Why it is reducing? Because the minerals are absorbed in more quantity. When you absorb more quantity, it become toxic. So in case of our sense also, when we take more food, so it may cause stomach pain and it also leads to the certain side effects. In case of the plants also, if they absorb more nutrient, whatever they required, more than the required element, more than the required level, it causes the toxicity. Okay, so when an element, when a plant absorb the minerals more than their requirement, it leads to the toxicity. When toxicity is absent, when toxicity is observed, it causes the weight loss. How much? It is about 10%. Okay, so let's once again see the definition of the toxicity. Any mineral ion concentration in tissues that reduces the dry weight of the tissue by about 10% is considered toxic. That means toxic. Here we are taking an important example for the toxicity of manganese. See, when observation of manganese is more in the plant, manganese have a specific role. Okay, so if it is absorbed by the root in a more quantity, the manganese will stop the absorption of another element like iron, magnesium, and calcium. Okay, so when manganese is more, the plant do not absorb the iron, magnesium, and calcium because it become toxic, and it also causes the observation. It also causes for the stopping observation of the iron, magnesium, and calcium. So in plants, they have to absorb in a required amount. If they absorb more than what they require, it leads to the toxicity. If a toxicity is observed, the remaining elements may not absorbed by the plant. If the plant absorb the minimum level or whatever the level it is required, it absorb minimum, then that it leads to the deficiency symptom. So they have to observe in a optimum level. So it is about the toxicity. That means the plant absorb more than whatever it required, it causes the toxicity. So one example we already seen here, toxicity of the manganese. The next we'll see how the plants are absorb these elements. Students, we know that plants absorb water and mineral through the root. If we see the structure of the root have the root hair, then the root of the region of elongation, region of maturation, then after it also added with the xylem vessels. So this is a general structure of the root. So the root will absorb these minerals along with the water. So how this absorption of water and mineral has done by the root. So let us see how they absorb these all water and minerals. See, plants absorb water, minerals through the root. Okay. Next, how they absorb. So the roots absorb the minerals and water in two types. That means two mechanisms are there. So those two mechanisms are, one is the apoplastic mechanism and another one is the symplastic mechanism. So let us discuss what is apoplast and symplastic pathway. So apoplast pathway, the pathway is the particles or the mostly the water molecule or the mineral molecules or should be travel from root hair to the xylem vessels. How they travel? See, in case of the apoplast is a passive way. That means it do not require any energy. That means it do not require the ATP, because here the water molecule or the elements do not cross any membrane. They are not crossing any membrane. If they want to cross the membrane, they require energy. So in case of apoplast, it is not required any energy, so that it is a passive system. And this system is also called outer space system. Outer space. Okay. See, we can observe if we see the structure of TS of the root, so we can find many cells. See, between the cells, we can find a gap. So it is called intercellular space. Intercellular space means the space or the gap between two cells. It's called intercellular space. Now, the water molecule and minerals, if they passes through these intercellular spaces, do not crossing any membrane. See here, just observe the pink color line. Now let us observe the water minerals are water and the minerals are absorbed through the root hair. The root hair. So root hair observing water and mineral. Now they are passing through the intercellular spaces. So they are not crossing. Now the water is not moving inside it. It is not also moving inside it. The water molecules are crossing through the intercellular spaces only. So here they do not crossing any membrane and they do not require any energy also. So this pathway is called apoplastic pathway. The pathway where the minerals and the water do not crosses any membrane. It is called apoplastic pathway. For this pathway, they do not require any energy, and it is also called outer space pathway. Okay, and it is very fast pathway because they are not crossing any membrane. If the water molecule wants to cross the membrane, they require certain energy and it requires time also. So here, in case of apoplast, they do not crossing any membrane. So the absorption of water and minerals become very fast when compared with the symplastic pathway. Children understood what is apoplast? So apoplast is a passive pathway where the water molecules along with the minerals, they are moving across the intercellular spaces. Okay, by the intercellular spaces only they are moving. They comes to the endodermis. Here we can observe the Casparian strips are there. If we observe the TS of root, we can find the Casparian strips. So the Casparian strips are made with the suberin layer. So suberin is a suberin do not allow the water molecule. Okay, so here whenever in between the endodermis some gaps are there. So through that gap where the suberin is absent, sometimes the suberin not Casparian strips not totally cover the endodermis. They form little spaces. So the water molecule find the little spaces and through that little spaces it move inside it. So up to the root hair absorption from here, this region, the total pink color pathway is the apoplastic pathway. Okay, then what is the another pathway? It's called symplast. Symplast pathway is an active pathway. That means it required energy. It required ATP. Why it is required energy? Because here it is crossing the membrane. In case of the apoplast, it is not crossing any membrane. In between the intercellular spaces only the water molecules are moving. But in case of the symplast, children, are you observing the blue color line? So this is the symplastic pathway. Here the water molecule are crossing the membrane, cell membrane, and they are moving from one cell to another cell. So when they are crossing this membrane, they require the energy, so that it is a active way or active pathway. It is required energy. And when compared with the apoplastic, it is very slow. Okay, so that it is called what? The inner space way. Apoplast is the outer space way because intercellular the reaction is happening. The pathway is taking place in between intercellular spaces. Okay, outer space we call it. And symplastic means within the inner membrane. So the water molecule has to be cross the cell membrane, and after that it has to cross the cytoplasm, from cytoplasm to plasma desmata, then after to the another cell. So within the inner space, the movement is happening. So it is called inner pathway, and apoplast is the outer pathway. So in case of the symplastic, it is the active pathway. Here the water molecules along with the minerals travel and they crosses the cell membrane. It required energy. Okay. So by these pathways, these two pathways, the root will absorb the water and minerals. See, sometimes they are maintaining the ionic balances also through the gradient. By the different gradients also, the minerals have been absorbing. And the pressure flow, one hypothetical theory is the mass flow or pressure flow. By that pressure flow also, the root will absorb the water. Pressure flow is nothing but when the water is absorbing more in a more quantity, the minerals already dissolved in the water. So when water quantity observation of water is more, along with the water, the minerals also flow from root to required part, that is top of the pot. So this is called mass flow or pressure flow. So these are the pathways of observing of minerals as well as the water also. Children, understood? Right. So we'll go for the another one. The movement of ion is called flux. See here, water molecule or mineral molecules, they are moving inside. So the movement is called flux. If they are moving inside, for example, now this is a cell. Now ion is there. Now this ion is moving inside the cell. If now the movement is called flux. If the ions are moving inside the cell, it is called influx. If they are moving inside, it is called influx. If they come outside, now here it is moving inside, it is influx. Now the ion come outside. Now this movement is called what? Efflux. So the movement of ion is called flux. If they are moving, the elements are moving inside, it is called influx. If the ions come outside, it is called efflux. Okay, so this is a very important concept. Now the very important concept for examination purpose also. And so we have completed the pathway, different pathways, how the root absorb the water along with the nutrition. So apoplast, symplast, the two important pathways are there. Which one? That one is the passive pathway, and this is the active pathway. And we also see in the movement of ions how they are moving. If they're moving inside, it is called influx. If they're moving outside, it is called the efflux. So this is all about the mechanism of absorption, how the plants observe various elements along the root. Next, see, this is the flow chart. Okay, see, it is also mechanism, translocation of solutes. Translocation is, in other words, we can say transport. How the water, mineral, and food material transport. We learned that xylem is useful for the transport of water and minerals. In case of the phloem is useful for the transportation of the food material. So here we are learning about the xylem only because they are dealing with the mineral nutrition. So translocation of solutes. Now the solutes or the minerals, the root absorb these minerals in a dissolved form by the soil sap. From the soil they absorb it. At the root head send these elements to the epidermis. From the epidermis, next cortex region, next endodermis region. In the endodermis region we can find the Casparians. Okay. So after endodermis, then pericycle region is there. From the pericycle, they move to the xylem vessels. So now this xylem, when the water molecule and minerals have come, the xylem transport the water molecule and mineral to various part of the plants by addition, cohesion theory. Okay. So it is the chart how the root heads absorb and how they transport the water and minerals. See, these all minerals are present in the soil. Does all minerals are present? No. Some minerals are present. Some minerals are present in the soil, and some minerals has to be taken from the outside. For example, in case of the carbon dioxide and other things, the carbon dioxide has to be taken from the outside. It's not present in the soil. But in many cases, most of the soils are present in the soil, so that we can call soil as a reservoir of essential elements. So that means in soil, many elements are present. Now, how these elements are added to this soil? These elements are added to the soil by a process called weathering. Weathering means breaking down of the rocks. See, we can find many rocks, no? So when the rocks are break down, they have they releases many small particles. During the course of time, this very small particle become converted into the minerals. Okay, so the breaking down of the rocks are called weathering. Now, weathering process have been observed in condition of the rocks. Now, it not takes place in a very little time. For the weathering, it takes some hundreds of years. Not it's a very slow process. Say here we can observe that picture. Here the water molecule and rocks are there. Okay. Now gradually the rock is broken up and it releases the small particles. Due course, these small particles become the reservoir of the elements. So these small particles will added to the soil and they become the minerals. Now, so how the weathering process is occurred? The weathering process occurred in the three ways. One is the physical way, then chemical way, and biological way. Physical way, in case of the breakdown of the rocks, is a physical way, and chemical way, adding of the different kinds of chemicals. So by that also, some kind of minerals will be added to the soil, and biological way during the natural calamities like the earthquakes, floods, that the minerals have transport, the soil become transport and the minerals also produce. So by these three process, the weathering become uh, these are the three process of the weathering. So after weathering, when the rocks breaks down, the particles have added to the soil and the soil become enriched with the many essential elements, so that many elements are present in the soil. So we can call soil as a reservoir of different essential elements. Now let us conclude this one, what we have learned up to now. If once again we recapitulate it, in this session we learned different kinds of micro elements. We have completed 8 micro elements, their role, their deficiency symptoms, and also we completed the pathway of the minerals, how the plant roots absorb the water and minerals, apoplastic pathway, symplastic pathway, and what we call the movement of the ion, efflux, influx, and what is the movement of the outward efflux. These two important things we have completed. Let us go for the assignment. Children, when you find a free time, just try to answer these questions. So when is an essential element said to be deficit? Name 2 essential elements whose symptoms of deficiency first appear in younger leaves. Younger leaves, that means it is immobilizing element. Then write the effects of excess manganese. When the manganese amount is excess, then what is its side effects? What are the effects of excess of manganese in the plant? Next, which element is regarded as 17th essential element? And name disease caused by its deficiency. So children, when you find a free time, try it, and once open the textbook and go through the lesson. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Satyanarayan, sir. Sir, can you minimize your screen?